biggest option.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is. Oh. So we'll call the meeting to order at 7:03. We often start meetings with a short reflection. I didn't prepare anything. Does everybody have any reflection on trees that they want to offer? We'll go on. We do have an important new introduction today. Our new city arborist, Ann Swanson, is here. Let's do introductions around so that Hannah will get to meet everyone. Marty, you want to start with introducing yourself?
Hi there. My name is Marty Byrne. I'm a member of the tree board.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Larry Goldman. I'm on the council. I'm the liaison from the council to the tree board.
I'm Dr. Brugel. We actually have your interview.
Okay.
Congratulations on getting the job.
I'm Dick Olmsted. I'm current chair of the tree board.
And just,
I'm John Brew.
And I think I have comments.
Okay. Adoption of the agenda. So this was a very template agenda that Riley put together. We did. I'm sorry we didn't get updated, but there's a few items on here that need to probably be noted. One is that the next meeting will be held on January 4th, not November 2nd, 2023. Going down the agenda, Julia has been responsible for Mackler Creek restoration. We can leave that on there, but Julia's not being here. We probably won't have anything with that. Won't change the agenda. The 2022 tree inventory, the watershed company, that was an item from a couple of months ago. Representatives of the watershed company came, and we can leave tree inventory on the agenda, but strike the watershed company. And we may not have anything new to offer, but at least we can be brought up to date about where we are on that. And a new item under old business that I would add here is at the end is work plan for 2023. We brought that up. There's new business last week or last month, so it moves up to old business now. And under new business, both of those items that are on there, the tree board website, and income dates, and the Lake Forest Park Farmers Market booth, are things that are past, no longer relevant. So I think we should both of the items under new business. So with those edits, anybody have any comments about the agenda? Okay. Move to motion to approve. Larry, second. Marty, thank you. All in favor? Oh, we don't have enough for we don't have a quorum, so we can't approve anything.
I mean, you can have an informal agenda, but you can't approve last month's minutes because you don't have a quorum.
Okay. All right. So the next item is approving the minutes. Riley did send the minutes around. I hope you had a chance to look them over. If you do and see anything that needs to be changed, let Riley know. We'll have to bring them up for adoption next month. I took a look at them. I thought they were pretty good. So, but I encourage you all to take a look at that. Okay, citizen comments. This portion of the agenda is set aside for public to address tree board agenda items. Comments are limited to a 3-minute time. Anybody?
I can be short.
Okay, John, go ahead.
Almost be short.
Stand up so Marty can see me. I just want to say I've been working with the group on the Sound Transit Bus Rapid Transit project. My biggest concern is they're gonna remove 439 trees. So we're trying to put together a plan with all concerned citizens. And go forward to our council and mayor, et cetera, and eventually to Sound Transit. We hope to effect at least some design changes would save some trees. So that is all. And welcome to our new workers.
Thank you, John. I hope that you can do that. I mean, it's shocking. There's no way they can do it without removing a lot of trees.
Take village.
The mitigating effects, we hope we can make use of some money to.
What sort of design changes are you looking at? I have a very, the Sheraton Beach Community Club, getting all up in arms about it. And one of their suggestions was getting rid of the stop on 165th Street. The bus stop. Well, getting rid of the BRT stop, which I think is the worst idea I've heard since telephone company.
But our group, we're trying to start to sync up with Sheridan Beach Club, some other people to get, a common denominator. So right now, if we would push for, don't do the bus lane. We don't think it's justified based on ridership or on saving time over the whole run. So, but we would keep all the technology changes, like making the lights changes. Hopefully that answers.
And creating three stops.
We would still say keep the 3 stops. Yeah.
I thought the council, if you signed that letter out there, 3 council members signed the letter to the board. I thought it made good sense. Postpone the widening, basically. Which,
That's exactly,
yeah. I think that.
Okay.
So my name is Dean Ballin. I live south by Horizon View area of Lake Forest Park, and there was a recent tree cutting under permit in my area that gave me pause for concern. And I know that since the tree board is reviewing, I believe, regulations dealing with tree cutting, it just seemed appropriate to bring these concerns to the board to see if there might be an opportunity to address them. So this is an example of a Leyland cypress that was cut down with permit, and the area around it, it's in my neighborhood, what it looked like. And this is what that area looks like now. It's essentially become a parking strip for rental home.
Can you hold it up?
This is the picture. I don't see that. I can leave these with you so that they can get it as people choose. Picture of what the area did look like prior to cutting and while this Leyland cypress was being cut, and what that area looks like now. Essentially become a parking strip.
Can you
So-
tell us what neighborhood that was, please?
Sorry.
Can you tell us what neighborhood that was?
Yes, it's up just below Horizon View Park,
Thank you.
south and east. Two things, when I got to looking into that, two things struck me. One is that the trees that were along where the vehicle is now parked is considered city right of way. And so the trees that were all taken out of that don't need to be replaced apparently because it's city right of way. That caused me concern because as I think about all of Lake Forest Park and all of the area where we have city right of way that is reserved for things like sidewalks and whatnot that have not been in the 30 years I've lived here, probably won't be. If one were to remove all of those trees from the city property and not replace them, it would be a wish list. So I'm hoping that something about the tree regulations can address replacement of trees, even though it's on the city right of way, until such time as sidewalks are built. The second thing is that the big major Leyland cypress was taken down. According to the arborist report, it was not threatening property, it was not threatening roadway. There was really no reason to take it down other than it was going to continue growing. Well, that's what trees do. They continue growing. This particular Leyland cypress, you can see in the photos here, is probably 30 feet from a residence. Was a totally healthy tree as stated by the arborist, so there was really no reason to take it down. So in that regard, I would like to see the board address perhaps a little more firmly reasons that homeowners have to provide in order to take down legacy trees. This is a tree about 30 inches diameter, large tree. As you can see in the last picture, it's not a base with a broken line. And I just don't think that's anything. Those are the thoughts.
Right, seeing no one else, the community, move on to citizen comments. Communication, okay, the next, meeting will be- go ahead.
Does anyone understand the rules about cutting a city right of ways? I mean, if anybody wants to consider treating the city right of way, cut it. I don't know what the rules are, so I'm not sure.
But I know that if you are the adjacent property owner and the tree is, someone is thinking that a tree is dangerous or it needs to be removed, and you're the adjacent property, then you are responsible for, say that the tree is like gonna damage power line, being offered your life, the abutting property owner is responsible for that. So I don't remember the code verbatim, but
Yes, that homeowner is responsible for finding something on that highway right of way that are in front of their house.
yeah,
So
correct.
if they can, it's up to them to, if they want to remove a tree, they have to go through the permit process. It's not the city's responsibility.
But it sounds like they removed a bunch of trees here.
There were, in this case, the permit was for 5 trees to be removed.
Fortunately, the arborist who approved that is no longer here, so it's hard to get an explanation of why.
Well, the removal permit does require mitigation, like replacement,
Except in this case,
except for the street right away.
Yeah.
That's,
there's an email from a camera. Says, hi Craig, I read your Ash's report, material permit issued back in 2018. She states explicitly that, quote, since the trees are in the right of way, there will be no replacement canopy required to be planted.
that's an exception to the rule.
And that's why I brought it to the board. It's like, I don't, it seems like that's kind of a loophole maybe, or something that isn't really in the best interest of our protecting the trees.
And it also conflicts with one of our ongoing projects has been to plant more trees. And right away is the place we certainly talked about doing it, simplest place to get permission to plant them. So it's yes.
Okay, thank you.
I can leave all of this.
Okay.
Once you take a look at it.
Leave it with Riley, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Next meeting will be on Wednesday, January 4th at 7 p.m. Announcements. I don't have any announcements. Brian, do you have any announcements from the city board?
I do not, other than the fact that we have a new arborist. That was probably the most important one.
Oh, yeah, so we were introducing ourselves, but forgot to ask Hannah to introduce herself.
Yes,
Give us a little bit about your background,
yep. Well, again,
why you want to be here.
I'm Hannah Swanson. I got a degree in ecology from Seattle Pacific University, and shortly after got into urban forestry and was working in the private sector, starting off doing permitting, arborist reports, and then working as an arborist, doing consulting, and then eventually moving into just management of a team of arborists. My move to come into the city setting is to be able to help the public in what I think would be a better capacity. I found working in the private sector a little challenging with sales goals at mind, which doesn't always lead to the best care for trees and the urban forest. So my hope is to be able to make the biggest impact in the community, to take care of the trees and take care of the community.
Have you had a chance to get to know Lake Forest Park?
You know, yeah, it's been, we hit the ground running. It's been a lot of work so far. I'm on day 3, but definitely I will be biking in tomorrow, and we'll be biking a bunch of the streets over the next month to get familiar.
Is on the Lake Forest Park City's website, look at the tree walks of Lake Forest Park.
Okay, I
They're
have seen that.
downloadable PDFs. Some of them we've updated with photos and some have not yet. A couple of them are right here from town center.
I'll make sure to at least do one and report back next week.
They're more informative in the spring. Things are starting to leak out, flower and so on. But they were put together by somebody from the Stewardship Foundation a couple of years ago, and we've been updating them slowly over the last 2 or 3 years.
And if you haven't looked at it, I'm sure you will like it. The IE tree report that was done.
Or 2011.
Yeah.
I haven't read it.
Yeah.
I have read
Yeah,
that.
that's single bit, the best bit of information.
Yes.
And what may not, you're a little less likely to know, we also have a recent LiDAR study of the tree canopy.
I have.
Okay, great. You're more
And I
up to date than most of us.
My degree in science, I like to have scientific backing to make decisions. So I really have access to all that information to make the most informed decisions.
All right, any other announcements? Councilman Golden has a spot towards the end of the agenda, so we don't need to pressure him for announcements. All right, old business, Mackler Creek restoration. This is Julia's project, and she updated us last month. Summarized for Hannah, sake that this is a removal of invasive species along Mackler Creek, which is one of the 2 main creeks that come into the lake right here in Town Center. And there was a street that follows the creek, and it's badly infested with invasive species. Julia got a sizable grant to remove invasives and to plant with natives plants. And so the invasives were removed over the last couple of years. That year, plantings were done. And there's some money left, and so that is going to be used to do more planting. Some of the plantings failed, some were by mountain beaver and deer and things. So it will be, the rest of the money will be spent on sort of replacing things. But it was really good compared to what it's like. Tree inventory. I don't think there's anything new to report on this either.
I know Steve is meeting with the council tomorrow.
I can provide a little update about that. So yeah, tomorrow we have a packed agenda, but one of our agenda items is formally approving the major contract with Watershed Company to extend the tree inventory into next year. And my understanding is the goal will be to complete get a report from them by May to June of 23. And then I think everything else is still on track that, once we have a report, then you'll take over and make some recommendations as to some potential amendments. But yeah, it's looking like they're going to be coming up with some new randomly selected plots to supplement the existing plots.
That's good. Thanks.
We talked about data that comes out of this. We'll still get the same data, but we're not going to have it next week like we would. Next summer. Or we can share it with you quickly. John and I spent a couple hours discussing that data at one point, so.
But my understanding is that since this is a city contract, all of the results will be public information, so it will be fully disseminated to anyone in the public is interested.
And we like to analyze data, Julian Anderson, myself. So, and we learned.
Were you at that meeting we had? Yeah.
Okay, tree code amendments update, I think this is sort of follows directly from the inventory, the last bits of. And the tree board did make some recommended changes to the tree ordinance a year ago. Most of them were adopted, but a couple things were put on hold until we have the inventory to help us fine tune some of the things. One of them we talked about was the tree diameter for the exceptional trees. Landmark trees, that kind of something category.
The council's changing that one that vote. But we're talking about 1% of the trees or 20% of the trees or what? We said, oh, we haven't thought about that, so we'll think about that.
And the other aspect of that that we've initiated discussion about is whether we want to restrict it just to a handful of native species, which is how the code is written now, or expand it to include any species once the tree gets about a certain size, with the understanding that big trees offer certain benefits to the community, regardless of the species, and therefore they should be protected. And there was a lot of sympathy for that. Okay.
I'd like to make a suggestion just to you in an email, but I think it might be a good idea if we have a meeting, we just devote almost entirely to that. So we all just try to read as much as we can, somewhat with the code.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to prepare some analyses of what sides we do. But instead of doing all this stuff, we always do every meeting, have one meeting, mostly tree code.
Yeah, tree code.
But not, not now, probably July or whenever we get the results.
Okay.
Can I add something onto this? I had, and I mentioned this to Dick as well, but I was chatting with our city attorney, Kim Pratt, and she is interested in coming to a tree board meeting to just kind of give an overview to the tree board members about what the law is on what you're looking for, when you're making changes, to provide some perspective to the tree board members, so that way the recommendations you come up with will be more defensive.
That'd be great. So that might also be the same meeting that we devote to having a discussion.
Yeah.
Or this.
Yeah, might be a special meeting, but maybe devoted to just.
Yeah, it could be a special meeting, or it could just be that we devote one of our monthly meetings to that subject. Because it is true that we tend to go through a lot of same topics over and over without having a lot of information on it. So I think the idea of devoting a meeting once in a while to a single subject is good. Okay, replacement tree plantings. I was talking with Riley and Hannah before the meeting started, because there's a project that I had proposed earlier this year about identifying a neighborhood that we would target with to let homeowners plant trees that we would provide. And there is a component of social equity here that tends to be the neighborhoods that have low tree canopy often are socioeconomically depressed, or to the extent that is the case in Lake Forest Park. And certainly that area of the northwestern part of the city is a lot of small homes on small lots with relatively little landscape. A perfect place that can work to increase tree canopy. And I think Larry noted that also is an area that probably has a lower income, lower property value at range. Most of the rest of Lake Forest Park. That would be a good area to target for increased canopy tree planting. So I was talking with Hannah and Riley about how we can start that ball rolling this winter, with the idea in mind that by spring perhaps we would be reaching out to homeowners, getting requests from them, and by next fall be in a position to plant trees. And there's a few questions that we as a tree board should be looking to answer in this: is how big a selection of species do we want to offer? Do we only want to offer native trees, or only conifers, or have it be more widespread? Hannah mentioned that the King County Conservation District has a nursery and has trees that we might be able to use as source for trees, in which case we could take advantage of what they have.
The good thing to think through what we pick trees is trees that will be able to withstand climate change.
Yes.
Some of our native trees aren't beneficial, and then also considering, like, I know like Forest Park wants to keep a heavy percentage of trees conifers. Well, those as they grow, those are much more costly for homeowners to manage versus deciduous trees that don't get as tall. All things to think through as we.
Yeah, and also trees that will require relatively little homeowner attention when they get through to the establishment phase, because all we can do is provide trees and provide information about how to plant a tree properly, maybe give each homeowner a bag of compost with their tree or something to help with some soil amendment, whatever. But once it's in the ground, it's going to be up to the homeowner to keep it alive. We want to have as much survival as we can.
And on that same topic, John, we have discussed, since ST is going to have to take out some trees. We have discussed the possibility of some of the mitigation for the trees they take out could take the form of providing more trees and more money for this project in lower income, well, project in some areas of the city. The loss of 500 trees, whatever it is, could be a little bit less of a disaster if we can use the funds from that, plant some trees in places that don't have them. Not saying we want to take trees out, but if we're going to come out anyway.
Well, there's going to be mitigating funds, as I understand it, that will be available to us for tree planting. So that will be part of the source of this. And we really, at this point, don't know what the budget would be, given this number of variables. But I think,
Building city floor.
yeah, but I think we're going to have a significant amount of money to spend on tree planting in the next couple of years.
I'd like to offer that, in addition to tree planting, the board consider maintenance of those trees. In other words, watering. In a lot of the less fluent areas, homeowners are not necessarily invested in keeping that planting alive. So if you plant the tree but then don't grow it, you wasted the funds.
Well, that gets into the issue of, planting on street right of ways where the city has responsibility or can take responsibility versus providing trees for homeowners where the city probably can't take much responsibility for those trees because of private property issues.
If we make technique, if we expect the homeowner to plant the tree, that's work.
Yeah.
So if they do the work for that, they might be willing to do the work for water. So we can hope they'll work that.
And there'll be subsidized. We're not gonna give everybody a treat and say, okay, you've got to plant this to make it grow. Right. It's going to be people who are going to volunteer. Right. And we hope that there will be a significant response.
Perhaps we can provide them with those like those water bags you wrap around the tree,
Yeah.
something like this, sort of minimally expensive tree maintenance stuff. But future plans.
Moving along, the next item on the old business is the 2022 Arbor Day event. And I would like to officially put this to rest for 2022. And that, as Hannah was saying, that we already have frozen soil in places and possibly up on Horizon View. It's probably a little late in the season to be considering trying to have fast enough with a plan. But we still have the tree. It's in a large pot in my driveway. We have a place in mind. I was looking back to my notes with Harvey. He had worked with the city planners and identified the spot up on Horizon View Park to plant it. So I think we'll be in position come spring to have our 2023 tree planting. It should be relatively straightforward.
We can plant 2 trees and still shoot for as much time.
But this one that I have is now getting pretty big. It's in a pot this big and it's 15 feet tall. So I'm eager to get it in the ground. Okay, the public outreach plan. This was Sandy's project, and Sandy isn't with us tonight, so I think we'll postpone any further discussion of this.
I was hoping to ask a question.
Okay,
So as I recall from last month's meeting, the board had discussed posting an article in the monthly newsletter. And then I saw the November newsletter went out, and I thought there was meant to be an article about Christmas trees. I didn't see that in the newsletter.
yeah, I don't know if it was, I gave Sandy all the information about, contact information for, what's the news, e-news. And encourage her to contact directly. So apparently didn't.
Can I jump in here? What's the question about this? The audio is not that good, so I'm following along, but what's the question about that article? I know Sandy did have a schedule of content, and that may have been part of it.
Yes, I think that's the issue, that there was I think she was going to reprise the story about Christmas trees from last year. And it would have had to go on in the November issue, I think, because the December issue doesn't, it comes out late in the month, right? So-
Yeah,
so-
yeah, yeah.
And so it apparently didn't happen.
Okay. Sandy and Mandy and I haven't gotten together for a while, and so I think that the next step for us is to meet up, regroup, see where we are, and then proceed from there. I don't remember if that was in that issue or not. November's a long time away. But I will definitely follow up on that.
Thank you. One of the other things that Sandy had raised, or I think Sandy, it was a question about disposal of Christmas trees, whether the city was going to do something to provide disposal of fresh Christmas trees after the season was over. The city had done it in the past, had a spot, parking lot or something, where people could just drop off trees. But they hadn't done it the last couple of years. And I don't know who we would even look to, but I'm looking at Riley, thinking that he might be able to ask around and see if this is.
I can speak to my
Did you guys ever do the like dropping trees off, shipping it, and allowing people to come pick up the
Oh, no.
first chips?
But I think that's a good idea.
You could really bring it full circle.
Yeah.
Really just throwing out the big idea.
Yeah. That's a little more in terms of the infrastructure needed and the organization people involved.
I know lots of small cities are able to do it.
Yeah.
There's some really good plans we can base it off of. And
Do you want to see if you can find information from one of those small cities that does it?
you know, I'm not sure if that's realistically, I don't think I'll be able to get that with my training schedule, but maybe by next year.
All right, well, but if somebody in the city, you could ask your supervisor, knows about how this was handled in the past. If it's a straightforward thing to set up so that we can have a disposal site if people, some contractor comes and moves things by a certain date.
Would that be Public Works that might do that?
I presume it'd be,
I feel like some outside hiring might have to occur. I don't think public works would have.
who hauls off all the ivy that's hauled out of, say, 5 Acre Wood?
See, I don't know. I'd have to ask.
Okay. Well, that brings us to
Actually,
the,
the rest of your question, Larry, I was going to write an article. I am going to write an article discussing the kind of tree surveys we do, and I still am going to write that. Just as damning as it was one ago.
Okay. Yeah, I just noticed that like the Parks and Climate Committees had articles, so I think we get the tree article in it.
I didn't ask Riley about having the work plan available to post on the screen, but because what I wanted to do is we started through it last time and got partway through the content, just updating which things.
So did we want to skip through and just put no comment for the farmers market and website updates?
Yes, those are the, decided to simply delete the agenda. And the tree board work plan was moved up to old business because we started it last year. So if we go, plus there's a mechanism by which you could pull this up and put it on the screen. Right, without advance notice, I apologize.
There actually is not.
We can walk through it and I can read off the items. All I want to do now is, this is the last year's work plan. What the first pass I want to do is just eliminate things that we don't want to carry over and update who might be working on some of these things. Although with only half of the tree board here, the latter part of that might not be fair. We would just dump it on Sandy, Mandy, and Julia. We would not have to do it. The first one was communication with peer advocacy and stakeholder groups such as Stewardship Foundation, Parks Board, DNR, Urban and Community Forest, and opportunities to work together. This was something that Margaret was going to take responsibility for. Margaret's no longer with us, but I think that this communication is important. We should keep this on our work plan. So just note that we'll keep this, that we will need someone new. Next month, we can maybe get people to step up to take over some of these. Update, publicize the tree walks. This was something that I've been working on with David Hupp, who did the original tree walks, and so I'm happy to keep working on that. We've done two so far, or three. Two, I think, done, and the third one. It says update, publicize tree walks and heritage tree program. The heritage tree program is something that I don't know much about. John, you know if that's something that the Stewardship Foundation was?
I can find out. I don't either. I mean, I see the signs on trees around the city.
It was a program, I think, in which community members could nominate an individual tree to be a heritage tree. And it has nothing to do with our code. It's something that's, it could be for any reason. It could be a commemoration of an event that it was planted for. It could be an unusual tree that for some reason someone feels is.
I'll see if I can find changes.
Yeah, it would be nice to figure out what that is. I think when it came up last time, no one on the tree board really knew exactly what the history of that was. Have you heard anything about that, or you've only been on the council for a year? So, just a year.
Just a year.
Yeah, and this goes back easily before I was on the tree board, which is 5 years. We should try to figure out what that is. Tree planting and maintenance events. Identify, prioritize areas for the city replacement tree plantings. This is definitely something we need to keep up with. This is one of the 3 priorities for the tree board itself. And we have everyone down as being involved with this, but I will take responsibility for working with Riley and Hannah on pushing this forward. But ideas about tree planting beyond the one that we talked about a moment ago would always be welcome. And I think that's where anyone on the board or arborist or anyone who sees opportunities for where trees can be planted, or even the public, would be happy to have recommendations about that. Mackler Creek, that's coming into its last year. The budget will be spent out on that this spring, as I understand it. So we'll keep it on here for now. On hold, it says general invasive plant management. Julia has been the board member. Julia is the oldest senior board member. They also be the senior board member. And invasive plant removal has been a thing of hers as long as she's been on the board, and she's done a great job of raising money and creating projects for this. But whether we want to have a whether the tree board feels like it should be the one responsible for having invasive plant management role is something we haven't really decided on, and I'm not sure whether, since most of our invasive plants are not trees, whether that's an appropriate role. Although certainly one of the big invasive plants, the English ivy, can have a negative impact on our tree canopy. We'll leave that in there for now, but that's something I think we should have as a discussion item sometimes. Advising the mayor and council on citywide tree studies. Make recommendations to the council on findings and review of the LFP tree canopy study every 5 years. Well, this is something we just have on as a continuing board work plan item. It was Doug and Ashley on here. Doug, should we keep your name associated with it? Substitute Hannah or Ashley? Develop a proposal for facilitate and report on results of the tree inventory study. Well, this is also something that's we've talked about previously. Substitute Hannah for Ashley. Doug has really taken the lead on this, and we're no longer considering student interns. It's being done by a professional consultant. Meet with council and mayor regarding accomplishments, follow up on council actions, and adopting new tree codes. Well, this is every year we have to report to the council on our accomplishments. I'm not sure what time of year we do that. Do you, Marty or Doug, remember when we did that last? It's annually.
So if I could check from council perspective, if you'll be presenting your 23 work plan, I think the earlier in the year you do that, the better. So that way the council knows, here's what you're going to be working on for the next 10, 11 months.
Yeah, okay. But then also there's a requirement that we present a report of our accomplishments.
And that seems like a good time as well. Like if you meet in, let's say, late January, early February, talk about what you accomplished in 22 and what your work plan is for 23. So I think I can't promise an exact, which meeting it would be, but I would say try to get on the agenda for early in 23.
So we'll pair the report with the work.
Planning, which I have about the work plan.
Yeah.
Very bad. That's your notation.
Review intern tree removal replacement data project report findings and make recommendations. Seems to me this internship that we had was somebody was looking at summarizing all of the tree permits over many years, looking at how many trees were taken down, how many major and minor permits. That's what this is about. And there were interns from students from community college or someplace that were hired to do that. And that I don't remember seeing a final report of that. Do you, Doug or Marty, remember anything about a final report? Riley, I can put your name here.
I don't think it was last year.
It may be that this has been a couple of years and it's just has carried over on this work plan without it being done. So I think it was completed quite a while ago.
Yeah,
But I don't think we ever saw the results of the summary of the.
Look, I think pre-pandemic, I'm just sort of guessing, but that's just not the kind of thing, it's certainly not the kind of thing anybody was doing in 2020. I don't remember hearing about it in 2021.
Yeah, so that may be.
Trip over. Is the letter written in Roman numerals?
To your former.
Just take down all the work plan. It's just we don't even know what happened.
Yeah, I think he should remove it. Although it really was, I recall it was something that people were very interested in. We used to get I hope that we will start getting, again, monthly reports of all the tree permit requests. Ashley is to present these in a tabular form to the tree board by the tree board meeting. So we can look over and see how many requests there were, how many trees on each permit, so on. If you want to see, you probably have access to her files, see what format they were in, or I can send you one or something.
Yeah, if you wanted to send me anything that you want me to reference, it'd be easier than me finding it.
Okay,
If you can't find it, I'm sure.
okay,
Do you guys both have my email?
I do.
Okay.
I can get you too.
I'll take one out. It just summarizes, each line says, you know, what the address is, where it's not, whether it's a major or minor. What, how many trees are being removed, what in different categories. And there's a column for species of trees to be removed, which sometimes it's filled in and sometimes isn't, because the homeowners doesn't know when they stick them on. But review the community forest management plan. I'm not even sure what the status is of that. Do you don't remember anything about the community forest?
No, did you talk about it in the interview? Even the other candidate talked about it in the interview.
That's an old, this is something that was done years ago, I think. I will put a question mark next to that, try to figure out what that is. For next time. On hold, recommended tree amendments to the tree code. Let's remove the on hold because that will come up in 2023. And we're thinking that the inventory might be done by late spring, early summer.
In the council packet for tomorrow's meeting, the amended contract estimates May, June for report delivery.
So then we should say June, July for maybe being able to come up with.
And I mean, it's possible you may also want to have kind of like a preliminary meeting where the tree board kind of goes over. Here are the principles that we want to follow, meeting with the city attorney, you know. And that way, once the report is done, you kind of slot in the specific numbers. But if you already have a framework built in, it'll make it that much more efficient.
Okay, so great. Deliver annual work plan to council and mayor. Aha, here it says December. So that's something that we need to work, although we're not going to get it done. Let's make that early the year, let's say tentatively February. Early February.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Since you don't have a quorum tonight, what you could do is you have like a preliminary draft, send that out to all 6 members, and then request that all 6 of you individually review it in advance of the January meeting.
Good.
And then in the January meeting, make finishing touches, officially approve it, assuming there's a quorum. And then that would set you up for presenting to the council late January or February.
Review tree lists and reconcile discrepancies in canopy expectations for species considered delicious additions. This is something that we should come back to. There is a city tree list for recommended plantings for replacement plantings with tree permits. It needs some revision, I think. Couple of things about it. Actually includes a couple of trees that the basin should be on any of this for perspective. But it also, it's not clear that all of the mature size expectations for replacement are accurate there. So it might be something that we review and update.
Tim Pone, before he retired, gives a long list of trees that he was, basically he was proposing to replace that list with. But I don't think he ever did the second half of it, finding all the sizes. And without sizes, they aren't terribly used. A list of trees is nice, but the homeowner wants to replace 500 square feet of canopy. He really needs that number. And I don't think you ever got it on for him.
Yeah. One of the other things we had talked about also was having a list of trees that we are recommended to not be. You just have that alongside it. It's not like we would, I don't know, incorporate it in that list or whatever, but I think just as part of our educational goal, letting homeowners know that they should plant this or this or this would be good, because homeowners often don't know whether the tree is good or not. They see it in the nursery and say, oh, I like that. Not know whether it's impacted. Engage mayor and council regarding opportunities and threats, or identifies to those trees in Lake Park. Deliver annual report filed by arborist to council, including analysis of tree permit data. So this is what the interns, I mean, I think an annual summary of the tree permit data is something that arborist does every year. And this was what the interns were doing, trying to do an extended many-year summary of those results. That was completed, I recall, but I don't know where the results may have been turned on.
Also something in the code, the city code, of looking back at that, it's very, very vague, and I don't think it's completely comprehensible to me. If there's something about along with the tree inventory every 5 years, going back and looking at all the trees that have been approved over the last 5 years and see what happened to the replacement.
Yes.
That's impossible on the work.
Yeah, there is something in the code that says that there's supposed to be a follow-up on tree
Right.
replacements.
You know,
It never happens.
Right, if the council wants to budget a person to do that and nothing else, we can do that. Otherwise, we probably need to, that probably needs to be one of our code amendments we look at the next year.
Can I ask a question about that before we move on? What's the intent of that of analyzing the tree permits? Did we have a use for that?
I think it was just to try to get a handle on what the quantitative nature of tree removal in the city has been over, say, the last decade.
Mhm.
If you have 10 years of tree permits and tree removals, but no one ever looks at them beyond the annual report that the arborist puts together. How do we know what's going on over the bigger picture?
Well, if we don't have a clear purpose for that, I don't see a reason to do it.
Well, I agree to that extent that we should have a purpose for it, and I don't remember why this was thought to be so valuable to actually hire interns and have it done. I think the city requires that summary, annual report summarizing all the tree removal permits be compiled. It's just
Well, I could see an annual summary, because that would give us at least a snapshot of the activity over the past year and tell us if we might need to review some aspects of the tree code, or what kind of trees are being planted, or what we should recommend, that sort of thing. But to go back 10 years, I'm, a little hesitant to take that on.
Yeah, so that's what the interns had been charged to do. You look at all the tree permits going back for a certain number of years, I don't know how many it was, and compile all of that into a summary document. I don't think we keep track of what all the replacement trees are.
No, we don't. We don't
You have
follow
to
up.
say your permit, what it is you're gonna put in to replace.
Do.
Maybe not, maybe you don't. Only that has, it's,
Here it is.
I think you're asked to what you're planning to put in.
That's part of the approval process.
I don't think I ever did, and the trees I replaced.
That has to be a certain, the canopy size has to be maintained. So you
Yeah,
have to know trees are that go in, to know what canopy.
it's canopy size. There's nothing in there. I've had to do that in the last, I don't know, a few years ago. And there's nothing in there about what tree I should plant. It's just canopy size. You have to replace so much canopy.
I think that's right. I don't think it says, because usually the trees I've taken out, I took a tree out, and then 2 months later, I planted a new one. And I planted a new one based on what I could get it personally. So, you don't do it the other way, you don't plant it and take the tree out.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this. My suggestion would be that we come up with a clear purpose for doing it before we proceed with that. Maybe think about that.
The annual report be delivered to them.
Yeah.
So it's on our work plan, in part because we work with the artist for that.
You know, having attended a planning board meeting a couple of months ago, this was a topic of discussion as part of issuing the permits. What are the mitigation plans? What's the inspection? And depending on how extensive the work is, there are requirements to do like a 1-year, 3-year, and a 5-year, and that's done and reported through. Steve Bennett briefed us on this and gave some examples. And I know Matty Larson was quite involved in that. There were some contentions, or some issues about reasonable use for landowners, et cetera. So there is a process within the city, but it's through the planning.
This is for individual homeowner.
Yes, yeah, it's for replacement in general, but the trees are part of it.
Yeah, that's in the book, on the books. The
Yes.
point is, it never gets done.
Yeah,
Because
nobody can follow up with that.
personnel that can go to every, there's like 20 homeowner permits a month.
The mitigation, some of the mitigations require the homeowner to report back to, and give the city a report that's done by a certified, I want to say ecologist, that may not be the right word, but yeah, I mean, it's got to be a person with the certification reports, yes, this mitigation is done, these plantings, 67% of them are healthy, so.
I can see that for like new construction sites and things like that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, it wasn't.
For homeowners who are taking down a tree and
Yeah.
finding different replaces or something.
And I think, I think that's the problem, at least I have here, because I've taken a couple trees down, you've taken a few trees down. Marty, it sounds like you have, but we do these 1 tree at a time things, and we don't really feel, seem perfectly reasonable that we plant a tree and city has accepted it's been planted. But I think the rules and the expectations are somewhat different. Somebody's taking down 12 trees or something like that. For these major permits or constructions, very good. And it's unfortunately something I have no experience with. And I think I know how tree permits work because I've taken out 2 trees in my yard, but I don't have any idea how they work on a larger scale. And I think that's where the planting that you're talking about is somebody's planting 5 trees or 8 trees to replace 12 that he took out.
So where a cul-de-sac is being developed,
Yeah,
4 or 5 houses are being put in and they
right.
had planted 2 dozen trees. Who's gonna come back and see that those trees are actually alive 5 years later?
Yeah, but if it's a dozen trees, it's worth.
Yeah.
It's worth managing somebody does it. The tree I planted in my backyard last fall, really not.
Yeah.
These I at least just my thinkings about these things to reflect that there are much larger projects than what I've done.
Okay. Research and present a plan on possible incentives for tree preservation and retention based on other municipalities. We have you down on this for this one, Marty. Do you remember we were talking about looking into, thank you for coming in. Looking into what some of the other neighboring communities were doing about tree preservation and retention programs. You're
You're
muted.
muted.
Much,
Marty, you're muted.
Sorry. I did research that and I presented something to the tree board last spring, I believe. I can resurrect that and send my, I don't know if it was a PowerPoint deck or just some notes, but I did do that. I looked at Kenmore, I looked at Seattle, and I think one or two other places.
There's one of those east side towns, I think you had some information.
I'm sorry, say again, please.
I thought you had Kirkland or someone on the
Yeah.
east side.
Yeah, Kirkland was one of them, that's right.
I'm not sure exactly what we were planning to use this information for. That is part of our ordinance revision plan?
No, I think it was the beginning of our consideration of outreach to
Wow.
residents about, education about trees and caring for them and how other cities do it. Research first about how other people do it and then take the best of that to create a new program, a program for us. And until Sandy came on board, that not much happened, and that's up to me. But Sandy has a clear plan that we're working on to do that, and I would like to fold that into that outreach plan.
Okay. Good.
before we go on any further, there's something I want to say in the last topic.
Okay.
It didn't happen for my mind. One of the problems with it, I'm agreeing with you in this party. One of the problems with making all these lists of how many trees have been taken out is that it only gives you one half of the story. It doesn't tell you how many trees are growing. So you see that, 500 square feet or 5,000 square feet of canopy area has been taken out this year. We don't have a number, a very good one, for how many thousand square feet of canopy grew.
Yeah.
And you can read the wrong thing out of it if you see, well, we're losing our trees, but there's 5,000 square feet of canopy now. We do know that between 2011 and 2016, the canopy grew by 4.5% or something like that. It's a lot of canopy areas it turned out. So I worry about spending too much time detailing what trees were taken out,
Mhm.
which basically goes along with you, unless we have a purpose for it.
But I think it's good to know how many, say, landmark trees have been removed.
Yeah.
Things like that, because those are our highest
But
reservation.
I think the annual summary was good, probably just made by merging all those 12 spreadsheets, monthly spreadsheets.
Yeah.
But it's really what's needed, if anything is needed, and I just hate to spend too much time talking about what we're taking out, so little
Yeah.
what we're adding on.
It would be great to know what has been planted as replacement trees. I don't know how much information we even have on that.
But it's also a matter of just, the trees that were there 10 years ago, they're not here. We had, but
Mhm.
same like any other forest I worked for, there's been a huge increase in canopy over 10 years. So just trees growing.
Yeah, and from having revised a couple of the tree walks, it's remarkable. You go say, oh, look on the right, here are some young redwoods that are 20 feet tall. That was done 10 years ago, and now they're 50 feet tall. Dominating the skyline. Or, in this, here, look at this tree on such and such a location, and it's gone. Right, and so, things change. Okay, review comprehensive plan for tree-related goals, keeping in mind the city's next every 5-year update in 2023. I don't know what the 5-year update for comprehensive plan for tree-related goals is. Or do you know anything about that?
Well, every 5 years, the city does a comprehensive plan, and right now the planning commission has started that process.
Okay.
I would imagine it's basically liaising with, connecting with the planning commission on any issues that are particularly relevant to tree.
Yeah, I remember discussion of this now. That's exactly what that is, making sure that the planning commission has trees in front of mind as they're making the 5-year plan.
And I would imagine the planning commission will be touching with all of the committees because we're looking at the climate, section of climate into the comp plan. So they'll be connecting with the climate action committee and for the parks board. So I don't know if you're meant to initiate that or if they will, but I would imagine that there'll be some sort of joint meeting to talk when they get to that stage.
Okay, good. It would be good to have a joint meeting. We can put our collective heads together and have a series of priorities that the tree board thinks the city should have. And present that to the planning, the 5-year plan. And the last item on the existing work plan is review council strategic plan for tree-related goals. Confer with Deputy Mayor RE timing and how tree board can impact strategic plan. How often does the city do a strategic plan? Any idea about that?
I'm not sure.
That sounds like it's at most a once every 5-year thing, but if they're having a comprehensive plan every 5 years, I'm not sure what a strategic plan, how it differs. Well, I'll put a question mark. Let's see if we can figure that out. Okay, so that's the 2022 work plan. What I'd like to now do is ask if anybody.
I'm not, so I Googled it. So it appears to be 5 years. The most recent strategic plan, or what I could find on the city's website, covers 2016 to 20. So unclear if there is a 21 to 25 or if the pandemic kind of, knocked that out. But it would be a once every 5 year.
How does that is that distinct from the comprehensive plan? This is an every 5 year.
I think the strategic plan is more high level and that, for instance, the core goals, there's mobility, healthy environment, community vitality, accountable government, public safety. So broad goals. I think the comp plan is meant to be a bit more in the weeds, so to speak.
Already, I can see your expression. It's exactly the same as I'm doing it.
Okay. The last time
Is that what I mentioned?
are there any action items that we want to add to this work plan? All we've done so far is look at things that have been on the past one. Or shall I just, when I send this out for comments, ask all the board members to think about work plan action items that we might want to add?
Well, I have a comment now and a question. Can we add to this throughout the year? Is this set in stone when we approve it?
We have to approve it and present it to the council once a year, but we can update and modify it as we go anytime we want.
Okay, then I would suggest, since we're down a couple of board members, that we use this as our basis for the next year. If we add board members, we might add some activities to that, but let's not break off more than we can chew.
I agree.
Fortunately, as far as I know, we're not on the kind of bureaucracy that says, well, it's not on your work plan, you can't do it. If somebody has an idea and they want to do it.
Yeah.
So, we don't typically have it on the work plan, but recruiting new board members should be an ongoing thing every year.
Yeah.
I think we have 6 now. I think the charter is for 7. So we're only down 1. Minimum.
Okay.
7, I think is the max.
One vacancy and it's been advertised in the newsletter. I don't think many takers so far.
I think a lot of the people who have been added over the years, though, have come from word of mouth from other board members and council members and so on. So if we can keep our eyes open for citizens that we know who might be interested, that would be good. Well, that's all I have for the work plan. I will make some edits on this and send it out to everybody for your comments. And at that time, I'll ask for any new action items we think we need to have on here, or any modifications to these. that we want. Well, we instructed the new business items when we reviewed the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. So we're through with old and new business. Reports and announcements, front lines, that is usually something that the assistant planner reports on. I'm not exactly sure what front lines references. Anyways,
Maybe that was Ashley and Harvey used to present
yeah.
the monthly removal permits.
Okay, that was part of it, but there's also had to do with anything that went in publications in the city or that was being announced that might be relevant to the tree board. So do you know how new permits have been handled? We haven't had a arborist for the last couple of months.
I've been doing,
Okay.
We've been using arborist Miles with Bartlett.
yeah, we've been,
And he's been handling permits.
yeah, so I do the administrative work.
And Councilman Wilson's report.
So I interspersed, so I've talked about much, I do want to provide a little bit more information about Sound Transit. I've been attending, to the Sheridan Beach Club had a community meeting, I attended that. Sound Transit is planning some sort of public meeting in February. Exact format to be determined, whether it will be a presentation or open house or Q&A, but some sort of public event. A lot of members of the public have been emailing the council. The public seems to be very engaged on this. Trees are coming up. So thinking about tree replacement, there was some uncertainty about the number, but from what I've been hearing from Sound Transit, it's still a bit opaque, but I think it's going to be closer to 400 per week. So quite a lot of impact. And so coming up with a plan, I know the council is very interested in coming up with a robust plan for how we're going to deal with this. I think 3 of the core areas that will need to be addressed. One is public versus private. That's what one of the members of the public brought that up. That if it's a tree in someone's backyard that Sound Transit has taken, is that different than a tree that's along the shoulder of 522? I skimmed the code and I could figure that out for myself. So I think clarifying that would be helpful. Another one, who does it? Is Sound Transit responsible for replacing the trees, or will they pay into a fund for the city? I've heard from a couple other council members that are leaning towards having Sound Transit do it. Personally, I think that seems, considering how we're already short-staffed as is, I think having Sound Transit, because if they pay money and we have to get a contractor to do it, well, it's not supposed to have Sound Transit contractor for that.
So what is the if we're talking about here? What do you say? Replacing trees along the route of the
And
transit.
that's going to be my third point, which is 400 trees, they're almost certainly not going to all fit along the walkway corridor. And so coming up with a plan for where the trees are going to go and how many of them will be able to go in the corridor and what happens to the rest. So to me, I think that those are some of the 3 core issues in whatever tree replacement plan we're coming up with that'll be negotiated with Sound Transit and whatever feedback the tree board wants to provide, and any other topics you think. But I think those are kind of the 3 that jumped out at me as needing to be addressed.
There's where we get our parking lot tree. I mean, that would be great. It would be more or less in the corridor. It would be reducing the heat out of the fact of asphalt pavement, which the transit is going to increase, if anything. And maybe that's where we could sort of piggyback on.
Well, also, if Sound Transit is actually going to plant them, then that's, seeing this a big step toward our plan of putting trees in some of the underserved areas. We can actually plant the trees in those underserved areas. That's like, again, it's when we have to get the homeowner to maintain.
Yeah.
But Sound Transit can be required to plant the new trees to replace the ones they're taking out.
Right, and this is beyond my level of knowledge, but yeah, to what extent would it be the city provide Sound Transit with a list of locations that, okay, you gotta put a cedar in this location, you gotta put a Douglas fir in this person's backyard? Is it gonna be that specific, or is it more just, hey, you have to plant 400 trees, these are the approved species, have at it. I would imagine that the more guidance we can provide Sound Transit, the more efficient the project will go, so that'll be quite a lot of work for the tree board and for staff to come up with a replanting plan.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we could expect Sound Transit to finance private properties. But maybe if they were hiring contractors. Yeah, that's a different thing. That's going along the right of way. And, they've got a truck that arm on it, they go out. Yeah, that's
That process is, so Sound Transit has started, the Sound Transit Board has, I think, roughly 65 takings in Lake Forest Park. So I attended a meeting on this as well, Sheridan Market. Basically, the first step is they negotiate with the homeowners to try to avoid eminent domain, to basically reach a settlement where Sound Transit pays the homeowner a certain amount of money for some segment of their property that's needed. And then it becomes Sound Transit's property to do with, which would be trees. But if they're the ones who now own the property, then they're also the ones who are responsible for policing. At least that's my understanding.
They would have to follow the city's ordinances. Replace their property.
That is my understanding.
That would be great.
But I know there was some confusion about whether it's, if they're a public agency that change anything, or if it's a public, it's on a state highway, and it's a bit of a jurisdictional nightmare that it's a regional agency changing a state highway in a city that is bordered by a lot of individual properties.
Yeah.
So I think to the extent we can get some clarity from as to what the current code says and what our plan is going to be to get the trees replaced.
Three of the council members wrote to Sound Transit suggesting they delay the widening.
I
I
can
think a realistic chance that's gonna happen. I think you'll be one.
So I can give an update. So 5 council members, including myself, wrote letters. Council members Bodie, French, and Furtani co-wrote one letter. And their letter did ask to delay the widening until the parking garage is open in 2044. In addition, Councilmember Cassover and myself wrote individual letters. I personally was not asking for that. My thinking is that Sound Transit is at 60% design. There's still time, if they're planning to open this in 26, 27, we can work out these details in the next few years. So I think at the moment, there's time for the city and the public to negotiate with Sound Transit without needing to delay. And the impression I got from these public meetings is I don't think Sound Transit is game for that. The board has approved, the Sound Transit board has approved an official timetable for 26, 27. And so if the board can always amend that, but I don't think, my feeling, and again, this is not fact, this is feeling, is that Sound Transit is not looking to delay this that much further. But again, I also feel that Sound Transit has been fairly good at ignoring us, that their communication with the city, the public has not been so great so far. So I do want to see that improve. So I am looking for a very robust turnout at the February meeting where there's actual conversation taking place between us and Sound Transit.
Delaying until 2044 is a lot. Unlikely, but I can see some logic to delaying at least until we see how many people are going back to work and actually using Sound Transit. And I think that was the stronger, again, I only saw the 3 of the road, but I see the strongest argument. And everything that was planned before the pandemic is really not very valid.
And this is a severe year for baselines. You know, we're trying to come up with a long-term, this is the baseline for long-term plans. You know, we're kind of in that, we're not back to normal, but we're not closed down either. So that means a lot of uncertainty. Yeah. And there's also questions about what might be negotiable, and that is Sound Transit definite about putting in the northbound bus lane? Or could that not be put in, and so the highway is less wide, meaning less trees need to be cut down? So there's a whole lot of uncertainty, and
That's what the widening issue was, putting the northbound.
northbound bus lane and a sidewalk that would extend. Currently, the sidewalk ends at around 155th Street. So continuing the sidewalk from 155th Street up to the town center. So I'm personally very strongly in favor of that.
As somebody who's been a pedestrian in the city for a long time, it's really dangerous.
Take it off the way it is.
Yeah, and I live on 40th place. It's a windy street, but it carries a tremendous amount of traffic, especially early in the morning when it's not fully light out. I'm out walking my dog. And people come cruising around some of those corners, well over the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. With a reflective vest on, you can see that they are swerving out of the way at the last minute.
And so there's quite a lot of topics about, you know, what exactly has happened, what is going to happen, what's up for negotiation. But yeah, it does seem like regardless, there's going to be a substantial number of trees being removed in the next couple of years. So as a city, we just need to be prepared for that and to have a plan in place for what we're going to do with it.
So there may not be a big windfall of cash from that to us to use for tree planting, but
I think that's probably a decision the city, officially the city council would need to make, but with advice from the tree board and staff. Do we want Sound Transit to put a lot of money into a bucket and then handle it? Or do we want to give them guidance on how to handle it themselves?
I can see the benefits of each.
Yes. So I think that could be something, for the tree board to have a discussion about at some point. And how do we want to handle this? Yeah, basically, yes. Where is the, what is Sound Transit going to do? Where are the trees going to go? But right now, there's a whole lot of uncertainty. We don't have a list of trees that'll be cut down. So without that information, it's hard to make plans on such a fuzzy target. So that's my kind of vague and meandering update. We will be having our final meeting of the year. I mentioned that inventory, so our final council meeting of the year is tomorrow.
There's also a budget, budget for the tree board for tree planting anyways. In the city.
If there is a tree fund, and actually the tree fund is, I think, what we'll be using to pay the watershed company for the contract extension.
Okay. So we don't know how much will be left of that we can use for actual trees.
I'm unclear, but I would imagine we can find that out.
That's what one of the big questions about before we can do a tree planting, a replacement tree planting program is how much money we're gonna have. If we don't have much money, it's not gonna make much sense to try to ramp up a whole program of getting homeowners to plant trees. One of the other sources of funding for tree planting is fines are recovered for tree code violations. And there's a big one in the process. Do you know anything about the status of that one?
I don't know full details. I know there has been some fines collected recently, and
Well, the big one was a bunch of big Douglas fir trees that came up last year. The fine was $80,000, as I recall.
I can give you an update. So currently the tree fund has a balance of about $63,000, of which roughly 12 to 13,000 used for this contract.
Okay, so that gives us.
So that would be a lot. Now, I don't know if the remaining 50, if it's earmarked for other things, but in principle, there's $50,000 remaining.
We haven't used much in recent years to plant trees, but so that's, my hope is that there is a significant. And that So this $80,000 bond, my understanding is that the homeowner is taking the city to court for arbitration.
I would have to speak to my supervisor about it. I know there's something of that sort.
So in any event, that could be a windfall of money that we would have. Depending on. Okay, that's the end of the agenda. We have an item that says agenda for next meeting. Is there anything any board member wants or arborist or wants to have on the agenda for next meeting that you think of off the top of your head? If not, send me or Riley ideas. Advance. Okay, seeing no suggestions, is there a motion to adjourn? No, so moves. Second, Marty. All right, we're adjourned.
If you're calling for a motion, technically it doesn't pass because you don't have a. quorum.
Okay, then we'll just get out of here.
You could also argue that technically the meeting never started.
That's
So
right. It's an imaginary meeting.
you can't end something that didn't actually.
Okay.